Welcome to Student Connections, where students connect with their community.
Hello, and welcome to Student Connections on M6, your hometown station. I'm your host, Garrett McLean, and today we are talking to Coach Nick Beaudry to give us a wrap-up of the football season.
Hi, Garrett. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So, how did the team do this year?
We're doing very well. You know, right now we're in the second round of the playoffs. Went undefeated in the regular season, 9-0, which was great. We were the outright MAC Gold champs with big victories over Port Huron Northern, Marine City, St. Clair, and then some cross conference wins against Richmond. It's been a great year so far. We're not done yet. The playoffs have been a challenge so far with the victory last week against Southlake, but we are in the district finals this weekend coming up against, I believe it is Detroit Country Day. Yeah, I forgot who it was for a second.
What did the football team do in the past offseason to prepare for this season? You know,
and that's a great question, Garrett. I think the biggest difference, the success that we're seeing right now with the record that everybody really sees, but we're seeing the success throughout the entire season, started in the offseason last year. As soon as the season ended last year, a lot of the returning players now wanted to do more. You know, they wanted to lift more, they wanted to condition more. And so Coach Kaza, put together, we called it Dawn Patrol. And we started it in early spring, kind of end of the winter sports, where, a couple times a week, football, as well as any athlete were coming in, basketball players and baseball players were coming in lifting in the morning. It was structured. Coach Kaza has a really good strength conditioning program for them. Well, that started in the winter and spring, but we actually started opening the weight room right after the football season last year, and the dedication's been great. All the boys really came in, were there all the time. The attendance was higher than we've ever seen. And then it rolled right into the summer in the weight room. So we had a lot of participation in the off-season workouts.
So with all that, what are you planning to do next season in the off-season?
And that's a great question too. Once you start having some success, it actually gets more difficult, but you start seeing the participation increase as well. I think the players really enjoyed what we did. It's on a commitment on their part. I like to see the same or even more. Maybe some more days where we can provide the time being open with the weight room, maybe some more things during the summer. But once again, it really just comes down to the commitment. As coaches, we can't do anything unless the players are committed to doing it. And so if next year's varsity team wants to continue, then I'm sure we'll have the opportunities for them.
So as the season goes on, the team obviously get better. How do you continue to improve over time?
That's probably one of the biggest challenges as a coach, and especially for a successful year like we're having right now. And, you're looking at, this is week 11 in the regular season, and then the 2 weeks of camp prior. So, we're in our 13th week right now of football, and it's that everyday struggle of, okay, what are we going to do today to get better? And it's continually trying to create different drills to address the weaknesses that we're seeing, but at the same time, continuing to do what we do to strengthen our identity and what we've been doing all year and doing well. And I think that's difficult. Everybody you see around town says, hey, it's a great year, you must be having a lot of fun. With pressure or with success comes a lot more, pressure on the boys to perform well. So it's, I give them a lot of credit. They've worked hard, and day one that they came in, it really hasn't stopped.
So with all this success, what do you think your biggest strength this year was?
It's definitely the team itself. I think the willingness to put in the time and effort to reach the goals that each player wants is probably the number one thing that's led to our goals being accomplished. As I mentioned earlier, as coaches, you have your goals and what you want to do and your aspirations for the team, but it really can't happen without the buy-in and the work ethic of your players. And this has been a tremendous group. It's been a lot of fun for a coach to come in every day. I really, really like going to practice. Every day they really come in ready to work. So
What highlight stands out to you the most from this year?
Wow, there's been a lot of highlights. There's been a lot of big games that were really close. Some wins over big rivals like Marine City, St. Clair, Port Huron Northern. But I think if, to look back and when this year really started to take shape was probably that halftime of the Richmond game. We convincingly played well in the first half and went into halftime actually down. And I remember talking to the defense. I know Coach Kazan and Coach Winston on the offensive side. We didn't really know what was going to happen in that second half, and it was a challenge for us. And we came out and battled. And I think from that moment, we realized that we had what it took to win close games. And it did later, the St. Clair game, the Port Huron Northern game, last week against Southlake. Those were battles, and it came right down to the last minute of the fourth quarter. And so we really started to see this team is tough. This team's willing to fight when their backs are against the wall. So that's probably the biggest highlight for me so far.
With that idea of toughness, the team has adopted the motto, row the boat. What does that motto mean to you and the team?
It's great. I love the motto, row the boat, because we listened to Coach Fleck from Western Michigan talk about this at our coaching conference. I believe it was back in February of last winter. And, we, being the Vikings, always talk about the ship and, everybody being on the ship and rowing the boat at the same time. Coach Braun always said that, it takes 11 men to row the ship forward. And I really like that the senior class, brought this up to Coach Kazan and that you guys adopted it because it's really about effort. And, if you're in a Viking ship, so to speak, and only one person's rowing, you're going nowhere. And actually, you're probably going in circles. And I think it speaks to what we decided to do last year after then the football season was everybody was going to do their part. They were going to put in the time and effort, and it was going to be for the better of the team. And that's what we've seen for the last 11 weeks during the season.
I think we can all see that throughout the season, the team has just formed a sort of chemistry together and just really bought in and worked well together.
Yeah, Garrett, that's a great point, and I've seen that as well. And it's great when, as a coach, you see something happen that needs to be critiqued or coached up, so to speak, and another player goes over and does it to take care of their teammate. And as a coach, you don't have to, and that's where the ownership and responsibility and the unity of a team really comes together. And it's been great to see that. I would definitely agree.
Well, thank you for watching Student Connections. We'll be right back after this break.
Oh, hey, bud. Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
With Gary and Todd?
Yeah?
I've been meaning to ask you, is there any drinking going on in this crowd?
No?
If any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't. I'd do anything to keep you safe.
Okay, I will.
I hope this is working.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you. For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Hello and welcome back to Student Connections on M6, your hometown station. We have been talking to Coach Beaudry about the football team. What influenced you to start coaching?
That's a good question, Garrett. When I was growing up and playing sports, I had some tremendous coaches. And a lot of them meant a lot to me in my life when I was younger, in high school, and continued on to college. And those relationships still to this day have meant a lot to me. They've been more of mentors and friends. The Coach Valkos, the Coach Vina, Coach Winston, Coach Hauk, Coach Knuth, even though I never played for him. Those relationships and the way that they taught me not only about sports, life, kind of led me down the coaching path. As I went off to college, I was very fortunate to have some really close relationships with coaches at Ferris State as I played there. And so as I went through my college career and I knew I was going to go into education, I really wanted to pay back everything that they did for me when I was a player, both in high school and in college. And I think as you see Garrett being an athlete, and I hope that I'm doing this for the young men that I'm coaching right now, is that it's the life lessons, the leadership, the accountability, and knowing what it takes to be successful. I'm hoping that those coaches I named are proud of what I'm doing for them because they sure did it for me. So.
Some coaches tend to scream to try and motivate their players, while others sit down and talk with them. How would you consider your own coaching style?
It's a good question. It kind of depends on what kind of practice we're having, right, Garrett? I've always thought of coaching as you should try to not tear down. You shouldn't try to threaten, and you shouldn't try to use too much rewards. I like to try to speak to students and players on a kind of a level that they understand that you've been there before, that you've made the mistakes before, and that you're more of their teacher rather than their coach. I'd lie to you if I said I'm not the last one to raise my voice when needed. But I think a coach knows when to raise their voice. I think a coach knows when to pull a player aside. And I think a coach knows when to allow the team to take control of what needs to be corrected. I've read books by Tony Dungy and some other really great leadership and coaching books, but they all said, you just got to look at the situation and know what it calls for. I do know that I try not to raise my voice as much as possible, because if you're yelling all the time, players don't know if you're upset or you're just yelling to yell. That's a good question.
How do you motivate players to work their hardest on the field as the season continues?
It's difficult as the season goes on. I've always said that high school athletes, it's difficult. You have so much going on. You have band, you have your classes to worry about, you have things with friends and family, and there's just so much going on that you're asking a young man to concentrate for 2 to 3 hours when all these influences outside in their life are really what they're thinking about. Motivation comes in a lot of different ways, and as I mentioned with either you're a loud coach or a quiet coach, it's really just what it works for each player. We have low 30s, I think it's 32, 33 on the defensive side, and I think motivating each player differently is how you have success. Each player requires certain type of coaching, and to think that just one way of motivating for all of them together would be a fault as mine as a coach. So it's really just identifying what really motivates each player and trying to give them what they need.
With the amount of younger underclassmen on the team, what helps you decide to bring up sophomores and freshmen to the varsity team?
That's a discussion that Coach Kaza and the rest of the coaching staff and I have, a lot. We have it a lot during the off season. Nowadays, sports have become so competitive that you are starting to see younger talent being able to compete at the varsity level. And it was there when I was in high school. I remember the varsity volleyball team, when they were on their run, would always bring up freshmen and sophomores, and they would compete on those state championship teams. For coaches, though, it's a discussion. You had to look at a lot of things, and I'm sure Coach Kaza can provide a lot more about this than I can. But for me, it's about what they're doing in the off season, and are they mentally and physically ready to come up and compete with players that are not their age. If you just look at the age-wise, a freshman is coming in that's 14, 15 years old, and they're going to be going against somebody that's 17, 18 years old, and the physical maturity and the mental maturity. So when we look at bringing up younger players, it has to be the total package. The family, is important in that decision. Is the player putting the time and effort in the offseason to be able to compete at that level? Are they physically there? More importantly, are they mentally there? But if it's all there for the player, I'm for it. If it's going to benefit them in the long run.
We know that the team got a new tunnel before games. How do you feel about this?
I think it's great. Coach Kaza brought it up and told all the coaches that, he's been working hard to get that done and was able to do that with the Booster Club. I think it's a great thing for the school. Growing up as an old Viking, I remember the old Walt Brown Viking Stadium that was cement, and we used to run out of the tunnel. And that was something that was really special to myself. My father played here, and that's something he remembers. And I'm sure all the old Vikings, as Coach Kaza, Coach Winston, we used to run out. And it was a big part of being a Marysville Viking. And with the renovations of the stadium, not having that now, but having the tunnel, opportunity for the team to run out gives them that feeling, you know, and running out with your team and having that crowd stand up and a band play. It's something they're going to remember for a long time, and it's a cool tradition to have back for the program.
The tunnel does really just build the atmosphere and the energy before the game. So thank you for coming in, Mr. Beaudry. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us again next time on Student Connections on M6, your hometown station.